What is the worst retcon in Spider-Man history? There is just so many awful, atrocious, goddamn bad trash tier basura spatzatura type retcons. There's just so many of them in Spider-Man comics. When you have a Spider-Man character who has what? I don't know, 3,000 to 4,000 plus comics, depending upon the canon when you put them all together. There's obviously going to be some pretty bad retcons. The stories have been going on for over 60 years. Over 60 years. So essentially, a writer at some point is going to come on and be like, I didn't like what the other writer did, and he's going to change it. Today in this video, we're going to go over the worst top 10 retcons in Spider-Man history. The worst, just the simply abysmal retcons. Now, before I do jump into my list, though, I do have to ask each and every single one of you guys to comment down below what you would rank as the worst retcon in Spider-Man history. I know what it is in my opinion, but I'd like to know what you guys think as well. Before I jump into this video, at the very least, now is your chance to comment down below. All right, I'm jumping. So I don't want to waste any time, so we're gonna go right into it at number 10. Number 10. The retcon that Spider-Man was chosen to be Spider-Man by a spider god. Yes, this is a real thing. A lot of these you may not actually know of, so allow me to break it down and explain it to you. If you didn't know, originally, well, you should know, Spider-Man was just bit by a spider. It was a random occurrence. This spider was radioactive. It happened when he was on his science trip or whatever. He gets bit. He becomes Spider-Man. That's essentially the story, right? To the onlookers, to any reader, at least if you picked up the book in 1962, I don't know how many of you guys are watching this channel, but I gotta give you credit because that's really sick if you did pick up the very first issue ever when it first came out. But to everybody who did read this book when it was coming out, it was just a kid who got bit by a spider. There was no, like, God in it. There was no extra being that was forcing this all to happen. It was just, it was a coincidence. It was a turn of events, and that's what happened. But 40 years later, during the JMS run, JMS would actually retcon this. He wouldn't make it so it was just a perchance happenstance. He would actually make it so that a spider god had chosen Peter Parker to be Spider-Man due to the fact that he was being bullied and he can handle the bullies or handle being bullied. So the god essentially thought, wow, this person would be great to make Spider-Man because they wouldn't be going too crazy with their power. They would use their power to stand up for other people. I mean, I get in a sense what he was going for here, and he is one of the all-time best writers in Spider-Man's history, so I'm not trying to harp on him or hate on him too much, but personally, I just don't like this. Do I think, like I said, I get where he's coming from. It adds sincerity, and it shows that, like, look, Peter Parker was chosen to be Spider-Man simply because Peter Parker is such a great person, and it makes sense that you would have a great person become a superhero, because then he can inspire the public and inspire others around him without having the power go to his head. This all makes sense, but it just makes it too much of like a whoa factor. Like Spider-Man is the big thing about Spider-Man is the relatability, right? That's what everybody talks about when they talk about Spider-Man. How relatable this character is. Having a god choose your path for you just doesn't seem too relatable to me. I don't know how many people out there believe that all of our paths are predetermined for us, but I don't. I can't imagine everybody out there believes this. So although I get the sincerity of what he was doing, and it shows Peter Parker as like a more like better person who's meant to have the mantle, because it just makes sense as somebody who can take a beating as he does without becoming irrational, should be a hero. I do think it just adds too much of a divine intervention, not relatableness to it. That's just me at the end of the day, but it's number 10 for me, and that's where it's going to stay on this list in my worst retcons in Spider-Man history. We're moving up to number 9, though. Number 9 is Harry Osborn is Kindred to remove sins past in the Spencer run. All right, so if you didn't know, Harry Osborn dies. Harry Osborn is dead. He dies actually very traumatically, but beautifully. It's a great story. It's very emotional. And it's really a mark left in Amazing Spider-Man's history. It really, really is imperative and a big moment. It's super important. I love it, honestly. As sad as it is for Harry Osborn, a long-term character of the series who often is getting the short end of the stick, whether it be because of his father or because of his own insecurities. He does also die, so it's not like things get much better, but he does end up having a wife for a bit. He has a kid as well. You know, he's got Normie, you know. So, again, it made sense to me. You know, his story did his thing. It was really sad, but it was also moving, and it left his mark on Spider-Man, and it was important to the mythos. But that was retcon. Spencer retconned this. He actually retconned this so he can retcon something else. Harry Osborn apparently makes a deal with the devil or something of the sort, and he becomes Kindred, this monster who's, like, hunting down Spider-Man and whatnot, and he's, like, messing with Norman Osborn as well. And then you turn to find out that, like, Norman Osborn, he brings up the fact that he was banging Gwen Stacy back in the day, which was just abysmal. That was during Sins Past. And then Harry Osborn's like, oh, come on, you can't actually possibly think that was real. That was like a Mysterio and a clone. You can't possibly believe that. So this retcon was made to retcon a significantly worse retcon, but it's still in itself a really bad retcon. Harry Osborn, like I just said, his death was integral to Spider-Man's story. It was a very big part of it. I think resurrecting him solely so you could redo or retcon something else is just a waste. I think there's other ways to retcon Sins Past without even using Harry Osborn at all. I don't think it's important. It's almost laughable how goofy this is. It's like, this retcon is so bad, I'm going to retcon something else to try and fix this so bad retcon, and thus creating another so bad retcon. But I digress. That's just my opinion. I don't think Harry Osborn being resurrected to become Kindred should have been a thing. I do get the resurrection happening to retcon Sins Past, and Sins Past is god awful. So I'm not going to harp on it too much either. But the next one is also from Spencer's run. This one's not too much of a super big deal, but I do think it also just makes things too much of a divine intervention, not relatable, not realistic kind of opportunity. And when I say that, we're going to move to number 8. Number 8 on my worst retcons list in Spider-Man's history happens to be when Norman Osborn makes a deal with the devil. This is during Spencer's run as well. Norman Osborn makes a deal with Mephisto so that he's guaranteed to have power and wealth and richness in his life. I don't like this personally. I think it only adds to the layers or levels of Norman Osborn almost not being a bad person. I understand that somebody could say this makes him a bad person because he's making a deal with the devil at the end of the day, but plenty of heroes in the Marvel Universe make deals with the devil. Plenty of Spider-Mans even make deals with the devil. So I'm not going to inherently say making a deal with Mephisto is going to make you a bad character. I'm just not going to do it. But I do think it does weaken the notion that Norman Osborn is a bad character. He's not supposed to be a man behind the mask, and the mask is evil, and then he's a good guy. No, that's not it. He's a man who's evil, and then he puts on a mask and does other evil stuff. And you can honestly say that all of it's evil. Like him being the CEO of the company, he's not a good person when he's doing all that stuff. He's an evil person. Then he puts on the Goblin mask, and he continues to do evil. So to me, it just doesn't it kind of waters down that whole story of Norman Osborn just being a terrible person when he's making a deal with the devil to gain money and power and future and fame in the future. Not fame, but money and power in the future. And it's like, yeah, that's not a good thing. You shouldn't be making deals with the devil to gain money and power, sure. But at the end of the day, when you have a wife and a kid and you're making a deal with the devil for money, it's like, I want to ensure a safety net for my family. You can make that argument, So to me, it's just a little bit far-fetched that Norman Osborn's going out there making a deal with Mephisto solely so that he can guarantee he gets strength and wealth. I don't know. I just don't really co-sign that. I think Norman Osborn's a way better character when he gets all that himself, and he's just evil all by himself. So that's why I have this ranked at number 8, personally, for the worst retcons in Spider-Man's history. But we're going to move on. We got number 7. Number 7. This happens to be the Lizard actually just being evil. This happens in Spectacular Spider-Man 2003, that run. So, if you didn't know the Lizard story, it's a bit confusing. I already made a video on the Lizard and I talk about it, and it's confusing. Oftentimes the Lizard's evil, other times the Lizard is just a rampaging monster, so it's less evil and more just its nature. And then other times, the Lizard's even a good guy, and then Kirk Connors has full control of the Lizard's brain. So all of this puts together, and it's like, well, how does the Lizard actually work, okay? If we're going to see him being a good guy, if we're going to see him in control as a bad guy, and if we're going to see him as a raging monster, not in control as a bad guy or as just a force of nature, where do we draw the line for his actual characterization, right? Every writer can't just pick and choose how he's supposed to be. That doesn't work. You want consistency in a comic. I know it's going to be 60 plus years, and the Lizard, I think, appears in issue number 8, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been 6. It's one or the other. So he's literally been 60 plus years in these comics. So I know things are going to change, but it's just, those are 3 different things that are constantly rotating, it felt like. But in the 2003 run, they definitely take a choice, and it's a choice I didn't like. If I were to choose how I think the Lizard should be done, it's the Lizard would be a rampaging monster. That's a force of nature. That's his nature. He's naturally a monster. He's naturally trying to do lizardy, monstrous stuff. But when he has the control under himself, he's a good guy. I like the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde portrayal of Lizard and Kirk Connors the best. But this story, the Spectacular Spider-Man 2003 run, paints the Lizard as being evil the entire time. Curt Connors naturally chooses to hide his consciousness away in the Lizard so that the Lizard's evil consciousness can actively choose to be evil on the world, and Curt Connors can feign ignorance about it all, even though it's a choice that he's making to do so that the Lizard could go out and be evil. Now this... I don't like it. I just don't like it. I think it makes Curt Connors look like way too evil of a character. Curt Connors' character is never supposed to be this evil, at least that to my notion or anything I've read from him. He's never meant to be the bad guy. Like, sure, Lizard can be bad, and even if you want to have the Lizard have brain power when he's the Lizard and be evil with it, like he's conjuring like a cure or chemical that would turn everybody into lizards, like even that can work. I don't think that's a bad idea. I just think you go too far when you show Curt Connors as being the bad guy and he's actively choosing to do bad. So often throughout Spider-Man's mythos, Curt Connors and Peter Parker are like buddy-buddy. You know, they're not like, I mean, they are friends actually at an even certain point. They're, you know, like student-mentor kind of vibes into a more friendly, like peer vibes. But either way, when you have him be inherently evil, it just doesn't make sense because Peter Parker's not really friends with too many people who are just inherently evil, right? Like when he met Norman Osborn back in the day when he, like, you know, before nowadays when him and Norman Osborn are friends. But back in the day, whenever he met Norman Osborn, he wasn't really too cool with being around him. He's like, something about this guy's giving me the creeps, you know? He doesn't want to be around Cletus Cassidy. That's an evildoer as well. So just this notion that somebody he's so close with, somebody he literally hand-saved from Battleworld and brought back literally hand-in-hand with him from Battleworld, is a villain? Like, I don't know. I just don't really like that. I think it's a really bad retcon. You could have just had it where the Lizard becomes smart and is evil, or when Curt Connors isn't the Lizard, he's just smart and good. That's how I would have preferred it. That's how I think most fans would have preferred it. This whole evil Curt Connors thing just doesn't work for me. But we're going to move on to number 6 on our list for the worst retcons in Spider-Man history. And in number 6, I have Venom's cancer wasn't actually cancer. This is done during the Donny Cates run. In the run, to my, as much as I like it, I loved it. I did love it. It does have some things where Donny Cates was clearly like, I don't care about the canon. Like a lot of Eddie's backstory, he just decided to change on the whim, and like he made this Dylan thing up on a whim. But to me, the most dastardly part that I can recognize or reconcile with, for me personally, it's the fact that the whole cancer thing isn't really real. You know, that was tough for me. Because that's a big part of Eddie Brock's story. In the earlier days for Eddie Brock, he gets cancer, right? And when he has this cancer, he's no longer really his Venom self. You know, he loses the Venom symbiote, if I'm not mistaken, after a while because of the cancer. Matt Gargan's got the Venom symbiote. And Eddie Brock is just like this skinny guy who's literally dying day by day with cancer. He ends up in Feast one day, you know, looking for a meal, looking for food. He actually gets cured by Mr. Negative, and this cure cures his cancer, and it also turns him into anti-Venom. The little Venom symbiote goo that's still in him turns into anti-Venom at that point. So now you have a whole new character, anti-Venom. It's pretty sick, right? I love it. I think it's really cool. I liked it a lot, and now it's on it's on Flash Thompson, so we have Agent Anti-Venom. The Anti-Venom also gave Eddie Brock a new lease on life. When he was no longer Venom, we had a chance of getting an Eddie Brock Venom again. In games like Spider-Man Edge of Time, it was Anti-Venom, sure, but it was Eddie Brock. And that was still cool. At least it's Eddie Brock's Venom. We could still work with it. But then you go further, you're reading this run, and you find out that the cancer actually wasn't true. It was actually a manipulation by the symbiote on Eddie Brock. And it's like, whoa, that's a lot. No, like... The fact that it changes the whole dynamic between Eddie Brock and the symbiote is one thing. Like, it changes it completely from it just like, you know, over time, it gives him cancer, to it maliciously and meticulously making him think he has cancer. You know, those are two different things. One is like, it unintentionally gave him cancer. Okay, well, it didn't know any better. The other is just like, vicious and monstrous and evil, if almost anything, you know? But to go even further, like I just explained, it also just makes like the anti-Venom thing like, what? Why did he have to go to Feast? And why was Martin Lee curing him of cancer if he didn't actually have cancer? So to me, I just like, bah. I love Donny Cates' run. It's actually probably my favorite Venom run ever. It actually does something with the character. It has a cool narrative. He's moving towards something. He's the comeback king, ladies and gentlemen. But this one little part and a few other things, they are retcons I did not really like personally. Next, we're going to move to number 5. Number 5 on this list, I have the resurrection of 1610 Peter Parker's Spider-Man. Now, to me, This was just unnecessary. It was done for no reason, at least to me. Like I said, this is just my opinion. If you guys disagree, feel free to let me know down below. But again, to me, this was completely unnecessary. They already had the story moved on. Peter Parker died, Miles Morales became Spider-Man, and it was this beautiful motivational thing. Miles Morales is Spider-Man for quite a bit. You know, he's doing his thing, he's having his Spider-Man fun. And then all of a sudden, boom! Peter Parker's actually alive because the serum he took, the Oz serum, was like an immortal serum. And now Spider-Man's an immortal character. And what do they do with this immortal character now? He just stops being Spider-Man and he gets to walk off into the sunset with Mary Jane. Like, I'm actually not too opposed to that, because the fact that he gets to walk off into the sunset with Mary Jane because he believes that there already is a Spider-Man and getting the role for him. I just think it's a little whack when you like talk about the fact that they had to go through this whole resurrection process, or talking about like how he was immortal the whole time, when just so he can never actually do anything again as Spider-Man. It's like, oh, okay, well that's fun too, I guess. If that's what you really wanted to do, I'll let it slide, I'll let it rock. But at the end of the day, I just think you could have had him died and not even explore the story anymore. It's okay. Not every Spider-Man's gonna end up with Mary Jane, or I'm gonna take that back. Every Spider-Man should end up with a Mary Jane, but not every Spider-Man's gonna make it out alive. He's a superhero doing very dangerous stuff every single day. If a Spider-Man dies, it's okay. I'm gonna be sad, but it only adds to the story, right? Please, Spider-Man 2024, don't die. Please, Spider-Man from 6160 Ultimate 2024, please, 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 please don't die. But I'm just saying, it's not the worst thing in the world that 1610 Spider-Man died, and it really propelled other characters forward within the universe. I think bringing him back to life kind of just, I don't know, makes that stuff, bringing him back, you know, the stuff that motivated other people just seem kind of stupid now. That's just my opinion. We're moving on to number 4. All right, we're getting to some of the stuff that may be controversial. At least this one may be controversial. I know some people really like the character, but I think she should be gone. But this is Aunt May's death. This was done in the JMD run, to my knowledge, if I'm not mistaken. Aunt May was shown to be dead, but it turns out this was not actually Aunt May. It was like an actor hired by the Green Goblin to play Aunt May. So stupid, man. Like, this was really just stupid. I don't love Aunt May. I've never made that known on this channel. I've actually probably made it known quite the opposite. It's not that I don't love her. I think she's a great character. She's important to Spider-Man's mythos. And to an extent, I do love her, especially in the live action, especially in Tobey Maguire's universe. That Aunt May is just perfect. Rosemary Harris, I believe her name is. Phenomenal. Just perfect, you know. But I do think the character has overstayed her welcome. I think Aunt May at this point, she's what? She's got to be at least 150 years old, because when Amazing Spider-Man started, she was an ancient person. She was elderly. She's described as elderly in the first few comics. So how is 60 fucking years later she's still kicking? Just made sense to me that they'd kill her off and have it propel Spider-Man forward. You know, kind of similar how Harry Osborn died. But, I mean, then they brought him back too, so that was stupid too. But that's what I'm saying. Like, you gotta kill the character if the character's overstayed their welcome, and then they can still leave a mark on the franchise. Gwen Stacy died, leaves a mark on the franchise. She should stay dead. End of discussion. I don't care what they're doing right now. I'm just saying my opinion. She should stay dead. Like, her father as well made a mark on the franchise, should stay dead. Uncle Ben made a mark on the franchise, should stay dead. Aunt May, she's made her mark over the years. She's been in plenty of amazing stories. I think now it was, or at least then was the perfect time to kill her. That was the perfect time to kill her. The second best time to kill her is right now, because she no longer should be in this story, in my opinion. You could really do something amazing with the character, something really heartfelt that propels Spider-Man forwards without having her be alive anymore, because at this point it's just a little egregious that this 90,000-year-old woman is still alive. Look at Batman and Alfred. Alfred, to my knowledge, has been dead in the comics for at least 6 years. I never thought that would be possible. I don't even read Batman, but I'm just shocked that they would kill a character off who was so important to Batman's mythos for so long. I think it's okay if we kill Aunt May and do the same. It's just me, maybe, but I think it's her time to go. This woman is ancient. She's about as old as dust. She was in middle school with Jesus. That's how old she is. You gotta get her going. All right, we're at number 3. Okay, everybody, and for me, in my opinion, the third worst retcon in Spider-Man history. It's kind of large, actually. It's kind of encompassing, but it's just so bad, and there's so many little minute problems with it. I'm just gonna say the whole thing. It's the symbiotes going back and forth on who they are and what they're supposed to be. It's like nobody at Marvel can consistently decide on what they're supposed to do, what their weaknesses are supposed to be, what they're supposed to represent. It's constantly changing, and God, is it frustrating. Like, originally, and it wasn't even a bad retcon. It was actually a great retcon because it gave us the symbiotes. But originally, the black suit was just a black suit. That's it. That's all it was. Just a black suit. Gave Spider-Man pockets. And he can shapeshift his suit back on himself in an instant. And that was it. They retconned this and they gave it, more personality and feelings because Todd McFarlane didn't want to draw the black suit anymore and they hired him to draw Spider-Man comics. So they retconned this, they give him more feelings, and the suit goes on to Venom. At this point, it's still great. We got an awesome new character who would go on to become one of the most popular characters in all comics. Great retcon, honestly, phenomenal. But then you keep going and they just continuously keep retconning stuff. And at this point, the retcons are terrible. They're just flat out bad, right? So the Venom symbiote initially, it's just supposed to be scared and it wants to be alive, which is why it's the symbiosis with Peter Parker. It moves to Venom, and it's still in a similar mindset, except for the fact that it's mad at Peter Parker for getting rid of it, and Eddie Brock is mad at Peter Parker because he just got fired from his job because he believes it's Peter Parker's fault. So at this point, it's still not even inherently evil. It's not a bad guy. But this does change. Then all of a sudden, people start writing the Venom symbiote as if it's a monstrous creature that's straight up evil. And you even have the Venom symbiote leaving somebody midair because they weren't villainous or vicious enough for him. And it's the Venom symbiote was not like that. If that was the case, it wouldn't have bonded with Peter Parker. He's not a vicious person, right? But on top of that, there's also the retcon and the fact that the Venom symbiote started to give people other powers that it never originally did. For example, initially the Venom symbiote could not give Spider-Man any additive powers because he was already enhanced by the spider bite. This was stated. Eddie Brock and the Venom symbiote go back and forth. They talk about this, and he's like, "Oh, this is why you couldn't enhance Spider-Man's strength because of this." That's a fact. But then later on, Dan Slott writes it so that Spider-Man needs the Venom symbiote in order to beat the freaking Goblin Carnage, Red Goblin. That alone, it's that was just a retcon right there. That's not actually true. So there's another thing about the suit that's constantly being changed. Then you have their weaknesses. Initially, their weaknesses were sound and fire, and then out of nowhere, it's actually Carnage is actually only weak to one of these, and Venom's more so weak to one than the other. And it's well, now they're actually resistant to both. They're not really weaknesses, and they're almost unkillable. Also, the amount of symbiote goo on them has changed drastically too in retcons that are not officially stated, but initially the Venom symbiote was a distinct size, right? It could cover Eddie Brock's body, but let's say he wanted to shoot out some tendrils, it would take a lot of the symbiote to do that. Nowadays, it's just an infinite amount of mass, essentially. It'll grow as large as it wants to, and there's no reasons or rhyme behind it. So to me, the third worst retcon in all of Spider-Man history has to be the fact that the Venom symbiote, or Venom suit, I don't like calling it the Venom symbiote, but the black suit just constantly changed. Anything with symbiotes just constantly changes, it feels like, from book to book. And we really need somebody to hunker down and be like, this is how it's going to be from going forward, because they just keep pulling from different times in the timeline. So nothing's really making sense anymore with these guys. Right now, Venom is Mary Jane. Carnage is Eddie Brock. I don't even know what's going on anymore. I mean, I do because I read all these books, but it's just what's happening, man? What are they doing there? So that's why I put this as the third worst retcon in all of Spider-Man history. We're going to move on to number 2. So I actually hinted at this one a little bit earlier, and we're going to talk about it now. The number 2 worst retcon in the entirety of Spider-Man's comics is Sins Past. Yes, I talked about it. It actually is related to the number 9 retcon on this list, which was bringing back Harry to remove Sins Past. But I think it goes without saying that Sins Past should be ranked above that. Sins Past is by far and away the second worst retcon in Spider-Man history. It is only topped by quite possibly the worst ever thought process or notion or anything written in Spider-Man history, which we'll get to at the number 1 spot. But what Sins Past is, it's when Norman Osborn bangs Gwen Stacy. Yep, that happened, apparently. And it's just dastardly. I can't believe it. She writes a letter to Peter explaining that she had to leave. And you're like, okay. But then you actually find out she was banging Norman Osborn. You're like, what? This man's 50 years old, and she at most at this point in the comic is 19 to 20. Why are they banging? I don't understand this. It's gross. It's nasty. Isn't she with Spider-Man? Isn't she with Spider-Man? That's nasty. That's just nasty to think about. I can't, there's not much to say other than how awful this is as a retcon. Gwen Stacy was never doing this in the original comics. This was written in the 2000s, and it's set when Gwen Stacy was alive, so obviously it's a retcon. Because Gwen Stacy never originally was shown banging Norman Osborn when she was 20 years old. And on top of that, she also gets pregnant and has kids that age super fast and trying to hunt down Spider-Man. It was terrible. Oh my God, it was so awful. I don't know who greenlit this in the first place, but this has got to be the second worst retcon in Spider-Man history. Now, I'm about to get to the number one worst retcon in Spider-Man history, but before I do get there, there is one honorable mention I do think it's important we make note of, okay? And this one honorable mention happens to be the death of Miss Marvel. Now, Miss Marvel isn't necessarily a Spider-Man character, and what the retcon isn't necessarily related to Spider-Man, but it happens in the Spider-Man comics. That's why it's getting the honorable mention. This is during the Zeb Wells run. I recently made a video about everything wrong with the Zeb Wells run. If you do want to check it out, you can look at it right here. I'll put the picture of it up here so you know which one to click on. Just type in everything wrong with Zeb Wells Spider-Man, it'll come up. But Miss Marvel is killed off by this, what's his name? Oh my God. The emissary. Yeah, so he's trying to kill Mary Jane. He's doing this whole sexist bit where he's calling her a Scarlet Woman, this, that, and the third. Nobody liked it. It was terrible. Don't get me wrong. It's not like I have to like sugarcoat it. Everybody knew how bad it was as it was happening. We all hated it. But so that he couldn't kill Mary Jane, Miss Marvel shapeshifts. If you didn't know she could do that, obviously. This is a power she's had for a while. She makes herself look like Mary Jane. The emissary stabs her and kills her. And in turn, this makes him die for some reason. I don't know. They don't really explain any of that either. But I guess the prophecy said he had to kill Mary Jane, the Scarlet Woman. The prophecy is also sexist too, apparently. But either way, we keep reading and we find out Miss Marvel's dead. She's right there. She's dying on the ground. And you get some of the worst art looking at her dead body on the floor. And you even get more moments where like other characters are like confronting people. Like I think, if I'm not mistaken, Miles Morales' Spider-Man confronts Cyclops about him not showing up to the funeral and everything. And Cyclops is like, you just don't understand yet. If you knew the bigger picture, you'd get it. You don't understand. But that's what he's saying is true. We didn't understand. We didn't understand the depth and the lengths that Marvel will go to stoop so low just for the sake of it. You know, there's no reason. Nobody wanted this change to happen or this retcon to happen, but they did it anyways. What Cyclops was talking about was Miss Marvel gets resurrected as a mutant because the mutants have the ability at this time to resurrect one another through the like resurrection chambers in Krakoa. I think Krakoa was still around at this point. But either way, they still had some resurrection chambers, I guess, because Miss Marvel gets resurrected. And she's a mutant now. She never was a mutant before. She was an Inhuman, and now she's a mutant. And this is just stupid. That's what Cyclops was talking about. Now she can be resurrected, which is why he wasn't nearly as sad as he could have been because he knew she was going to come back. But it's just dumb. She's not a mutant. She was originally planned to be an X-Men member. I'm not going to lie. I know the truth. I know the validity behind this. I know where it comes from. But she wasn't. She was an Inhuman. And you want to know why they did that? Because Marvel didn't have the rights to the X-Men in the movies. So they were like, no, we're not going to make her an X-Men. We'll make the Inhumans and we'll try and publicize the Inhumans and grow them a bit because they'll be our universe's X-Men since we don't have their rights. And then we'll just kill off the X-Men. And it's like, okay, well, you bought Fox, so now you have the X-Men movie rights back. So what do? They're like, oh, well, if we have the movie rights back, let's just turn her into an X-Men like we originally planned. And it's like, why do your movie rights affect the comics so goddamn much? Like, it affects everything. You didn't have any X-Men in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. You didn't have any X-Men or Fantastic Four in Lego Marvel Superheroes 2. Like, this is annoying. Like, we love these characters. Just because you don't have the movie rights because you guys brokered a bad deal in the early 2000s doesn't mean us fans should have to suffer not being able to see our favorite characters in other mediums they still have the rights to. Gosh, this is so stupid. But I digress. That is the honorable mention. Miss Marvel being resurrected as a mutant and killed off in Amazing Spider-Man. But the very worst, the worst of the worst. It's the absolute worst. There's nothing worse than it in the entirety of Amazing Spider-Man comics. Or Spider-Man comics in general. But this is one more a day. It's easily, I think anybody who clicked on this video knew this was going to be the answer. Like, this was the only choice. This comic fucking sucks. There's no way around it. It's terrible. It retcons the best marriage in all of comics. Like, I'm not even saying in Spider-Man. I'm not saying in Marvel. I'm not saying in the big two. I'm saying in all of comics. Mary Jane and Spider-Man were like that. They were in every adaptation together, too. It was so perfect. It was so fire. We all loved it. Then, like, 2007 rolls around. You get the big wigs at Marvel who really just like to just peddle the dumbest ideas they could possibly think of. So they're like, let's get rid of Mary Jane and Spider-Man being together. You know what the fans deserve? They deserve the Spider-Man that we all grew up with, which was the Spider-Man from 60 years ago. That's what the fans deserve. The fans deserve to not move forwards at all. The fans deserve to be stuck in the past from 60 years ago. That's what the fans deserve, right? So that's what we got. They decided that us fans would rather see a character never grow again past the 60 years, or at the time it was more like 40 years, past the 40 years he was allowed to grow and never grow again since then in the 18 years since then. So now we're sitting here, we're just like, okay, well, one more day happened, and Spider-Man comics have been terrible ever since. Like, yeah, there's been good moments, like Mr. Negative was created, right? I don't really like any of the Spider-Verse events besides this current one, but the Spider-Verse events help create the Spider-Verse movies, even though there was a Spider-Verse animation from the 90s show before the event of the comics. But even so, the comics still had some good stuff since then, don't get me wrong, but nothing actually happens, right? Spider-Man doesn't grow, Spider-Man doesn't change. Spider-Man becomes a CEO, Spider-Man is no longer a CEO. Spider-Man starts dating Carly Cooper, Spider-Man is no longer dating Carly Cooper. Spider-Man starts dating this new girl, Shina? I can't even remember her name, but they're not together anymore either. Spider-Man's allowed to get back with Mary Jane, and Spider-Man's no longer allowed to be with Mary Jane again. It's just such a constant revolving door. Spider-Man is Superior Spider-Man. Is Doc Ock? No, Doc Ock is no longer Superior Spider-Man. It's back to Peter Parker. Doc Ock is Superior Spider-Man again? Doc Ock is no longer Superior Spider-Man. Doc Ock is Superior Spider-Man again? Doc Ock is no longer Superior Spider-Man again. Like, it's really, I'm not even exaggerating. It happened 3 different times. 3 different times in like 7 years. That's crazy. So I'm over here sitting here just like rereading the same books for the last 15, 18 years, and I'm going crazy over here. And it's all because of one more day. Solely because of this one god-awful trash retcon. We have yet to be able to move forward. The writer for One More Day is one of the greatest writers in all of Spider-Man history, and he was forced to write this book, and he really pleaded with the higher-ups of Marvel to not even have his name on the book. That's how embarrassed he was by what they were making him do. That's how terrible this book is. That's how terrible One More Day is. It's just god-awful. And I can't believe that it's still being peddled to this day that it's actually a thing in the Spider-Man mythos. Like, think about it. Spider-Man made a deal with the devil to break up his marriage with Mary Jane so that he can get Aunt May back. Because, again, this is also another retcon for Aunt May dying. Also, it's 2 in 1. It's not just a breakup of Spider-Man and Mary Jane's marriage. It's also, we need Aunt May alive again because she's not old enough. She's only 180. We need her to at least be 350 because that's what it feels like at least. So Spider-Man makes this deal with the devil, gets his Aunt May back, loses his marriage, and 18 years later, it's still the quo. It's still the status quo. Nothing's changed. The good guy, the hero of the story, did not go back from making the deal with the devil. The deal with the devil is still just in effect. How is he a hero? How is this a heroic story 18 years later? They still haven't fixed this? This is by far and away the worst retcon in Spider-Man's history. It's terrible. And I think every single person who knows anything about Spider-Man comics will agree. But I'm not going to go too far and force you guys to agree because I want to know truthfully what you guys think down below. Since Past could be up there, you know, Norman Osborn banging Gwen Stacy is pretty gross too. So let me know down below what your guys' thoughts are. I'm personally very interested to know. And I can't wait to read them. I don't really have anything else in this video. Those are my top 10 worst retcons in Spider-Man history, plus an honorable mention. And I think it's a pretty good list, personally. I thought it was pretty well done. But yeah, if you guys have any also other retcons that you didn't like, that you want to see, maybe comment those down below, and maybe I'll even do one on good retcons in Spider-Man's history. There's also been a few good ones, so maybe I'll do a video on that. But all in all, that's pretty much it for me. I don't think I have anything else to say. Yeah, that's it. Dunk out. Peace.